Good morning, all, and this morning's video is a reaction video to Orion Kelly, that autistic guy's video posted about 20 hours ago at the time I'm making this video, called The Impact of Reaction Videos on Autistic People, Legal and Ethical Issues.
What makes them so popular, and is it really okay to use someone else's content to make your own? I'm all about providing validation and support for autistic people and their loved ones. We want to talk about reaction videos, a topic that's not just about reaction videos, but through the lens of how they can impact autistic people. See, content creators can be neurodivergent. So just to say it doesn't matter how reaction videos impact autistic people if they're content creators, fails to actually see that not all content creators are neurotypical. Autistic people have a medically diagnosed neurodevelopmental disability, yet still have to face sometimes the good stuff and sometimes the bad stuff that comes with their content being used for reaction videos.
I'm making a reaction video to your reaction video. I am also a content creator, and I am also medically diagnosed with autism. I am an autistic person also. I'm either level 2 or 3 autistic. I was level 3 as a child. I usually say I'm level 2, but I may well still be level 3. And in order for me to communicate, because I am not able to fully use functional language, I make a huge use of echolalia. That's how I communicate. Whether it's spoken or in writing. So now I'm autistic, you're autistic. I gather from watching your videos, you're about a level 1 autistic person. I also received some comments about my comments on your video. This is a reaction video, and I'm going to jump right in and I'm going to criticize you. Why? Well, this is the problem that has been going on for far too long on the internet, where level 1 autistic people are speaking all about being autistic, and they're not accounting for level 2 and 3 autistic people who have more severe autism. So what you got is a level 2, 3 autistic woman who has never had fully functional speech, who was hyperlexic as a child, not allowed to watch television or movies because her mother forced her to read 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to try to get some ability to communicate, who uses in almost all her speech echolalia or scripting. So, when you're saying that if someone does a reaction video to another autistic level 1 autistic content creator's video, and the person making that reaction video is a level 2 or 3 autistic person who's using the video clips of other level 1 and 2 autistic people as echolalia to communicate and express themselves and their thoughts, you're calling it theft. Well, I queried ChatGPT 4.0 about your accusation that you don't address level 2 or 3 autistic people who can only communicate by echolalia and scripting. Before I cover what ChatGPT had to say, I need to go over a definition of echolalia. Echolalia and scripting are key autistic traits, immutable traits, and especially in an autistic person with more severe autism who is level 2 and especially level 3. So what is echolalia? Here, we're taking myclevelandclinic.org echolalia. Echolalia is the repetition of words or phrases spoken by someone else. Autistic people use echolalia to communicate. This can extend beyond the age of 3 into autistic adulthood. Echolalia, echophrasia, is the action of repeating what someone else says. The repetition could be words or phrases. The behavior is automatic and non-voluntary. Echolalia can be immediate or delayed. It can be communicative or semi-communicative. It can be unmitigated or mitigated. The most common cause of echolalia is being autistic. Approximately 75% of people diagnosed as autistic experience echolalia. In addition, before we get into what ChatGPT 4.0 had to say, we also need to be aware of what is severe autism. Severe autism is not level 1 autism. Level 1 autism is where the person is some high functioning, and I don't like to use labels, but it used to be Asperger syndrome level of autistic that some people portray as mild, as close to being neurotypical, and it's very debatable how to characterize it, whether you're listening to neurotypical people from the outside looking in or autistic people with lived level 1 autistic experience. But one thing for sure, and you can get this by watching many level 1 autistic content creators videos on YouTube, there are some key characteristics. One is that level 1 autistic people can mask, and they can mask to pass as neurotypical. So what that means is they can choose to mask, and maybe they didn't choose to mask, but it was drumbeat into them as a child in order to fit in. So they can mask or they can take the mask off. They have a voluntary choice. More severe autistic people do not have that choice. 2, if you listen to level 1 autistic content creators, one that comes to mind is the creative autistic, then you will get YouTube videos about 50 some or all these jobs this autistic adult had throughout their life and how they dealt with the job culture and the corporate culture and the social problems and the neurotypicals. And sometimes they can hold these jobs and sometimes they quit these jobs. But when you're dealing with someone who has severe autism like myself, that's not the history you will find. You will find a history, for example, like me, where I was adjudicated in my parents' divorce under New York State law for adult child support at the age of 14, as anticipated to never be able to maintain any gainful employment by reason of physical or mental disability, aka my being severely autistic. And then you look at the lifetime work history, and if you're lucky, you find 5 or less real jobs over the person's lifetime from about the age of 16 to the time the person is 68 years old. And what happens with those 5 or so real jobs, and we're not counting the ones where you go in and you show up like Fowler White, Boggs, and Banker, PA in Tampa, who all joined hands and prayed to God someone else hire me, the severely autistic person, because they were not going to. Those don't count as real jobs. And neither do the ones where you go in and it becomes apparent within minutes, hours, one day, or a couple days that you are severely autistic and you are fired. So 5 real jobs. And one of the jobs is a job that was self-created by the severely autistic person out of that person's special interest to be able to earn some income. Another would be where a state like California's Vocational Department of Rehabilitation stepped in and provided extensive job support and assistive technology to be able to communicate, to have the job at all. The others would be where reasonable accommodations are being given because the person cannot work at all without those accommodations. You're not seeing 40, 50 different jobs. And the severely autistic person does not ever experience the job culture or any corporate culture. This is an lived experience a severely autistic person never gets and does not have and cannot relate to. So, well, for example, I appreciate the creative autistics jobs and her video on trouble with these jobs and working. It nevertheless is the lived experience of an about level 1 autistic person. And it is not at all like the lived experience of a severely autistic level 2, 3 autistic person. And so there's echolalia. There's this difference in masking because severely autistic level 3 people cannot mask. We are not able to do that. So we live our life being punished for everything because we are not able to mask. Our autism is too severe. So before we dive into ChatGPT's response to some of the things that Orion Kelly, that autistic guy, said in his video, and other commenters who commented on his video, let's take a look at what is severe autism. And this is an article by Lisa Jo Rudy. What is severe autism, also known as level 3 autism? It is the most severe form. Level 3 autism is autism with high support needs. It often means the autistic person is nonverbal or has limited speech and restricted social communication skills. Autism with these intense traits often comes with sensory processing issues and extreme difficulty dealing with changes in routine. Autistic people with high support needs experience profound challenges that require very substantial assistance. Autistic people with high support needs, level 3, tend to be extremely sensitive to the degree that crowded, bright, noisy environments can be overwhelming. Sensory overload can lead to an autistic meltdown. Cognitive challenges. Generally speaking, autistic people with high support needs tend to have lower IQs even when tested using nonverbal testing tools. It's important to know, however, that appearances can be deceiving. Some people with intense autism traits still learn to communicate. Some people diagnosed at 3 are quite articulate. And stop right there. That bears emphasizing. So, in other words, you can't say, well, that person can't be level 3 autism because that person passed a bar exam. And I'm going to walk through why that is a myth. To reemphasize, some people diagnosed at level 3 are quite articulate. That doesn't mean we communicate in the same way with fully functional speech and writing as a level 1 autistic person can. I can unequivocally say that the level 1 autistic lived experience videos I've watched on YouTube, the autistic people, content creators publishing these videos, they run circles above me in their ability to speak and put together these videos. I can't do that. I'm not a level 1 autistic person. I did pass a bar exam, but about 99.5% of my communication is scripting or echolalia, using sentences and phrases other people create to be able to communicate at all, to communicate something close to my thoughts and express them. So, autistic people with high support needs are likely to have many such repetitive behaviors. And those behaviors can be intense and uncontrollable. Physical traits. Autistic people with high support needs, level 3, may have symptoms of other disorders that occur more often in people with their intense autism traits. These may include sleeplessness, epilepsy, gastrointestinal issues. I have also been diagnosed with seizure and with sleeplessness, sleep disorders, and I have gastrointestinal issues. So now that we've looked at the definition of echolalia and some of the characteristics of severe autism, level 3, and level 2 is a little less than that, but they are definitely not level 1. We can turn to what ChatGPT 4.0 had to say. I went to ChatGPT 4.0 and I asked ChatGPT 4.0 the following question. Is a level 3 autistic person's echolalia use of other people's phrases and sentences fair use under the copyright laws? Because Orion basically says that if another autistic content creator who is medically diagnosed being autistic like he is, so this is not a neurotypical using his content to make a reaction video. It's a more severely autistic, medically diagnosed autistic person using his content to make a reaction video to correct some of the myths and misconceptions being spread around the internet about what it is to be autistic based solely on level 1 autism. To debunk those myths and misconceptions and correct them, I asked ChatGPT about his accusation that it's theft. I'm level 3, level 2 autistic. By definition of my autism diagnosis, savant syndrome with savant islets of skill and ability, and the definition of that means it's juxtaposed with a very severe disability. So you have to look for that severe disability. Well, what is that severe disability? It's level 3, maybe 2 autism. That's how you know that I have severe autism. But living with me would also tell you that. So I asked about this, and I passed the bar exam by using Echolalia. So I'll take ChatGPT's response to Orion over Orion's complaint about it any day. And here's what ChatGPT had to say. Is a level 3 autistic person's echolalia use of other people's phrases and sentences fair use? Yes. A level 3 autistic person's use of echolalia, repeating phrases or sentences they have heard from others, and that would include being like Temple Grandin and thinking in pictures, so communicating through a form of echolalia that takes video clips of the sentences and phrases created by the other much higher level autistic person or even a neurotypical. Would that typically fall under fair use? ChatGPT says yes. It would typically fall under fair use for several reasons. Fair use under copyright law considers the purpose, nature, amount, and effect of the usage. Here's how these factors apply to echolalia in this context. Purpose and character of use. Echolalia is primarily a functional communication tool rather than an attempt to profit from or claim ownership over someone else's expressions. People with level 3 autism may rely on echolalia to communicate, self-regulate, or express themselves, making it essential for their day-to-day interactions. The use of these phrases is non-commercial and transformative in nature, as it repurposes the phrases from their original context to serve the individual's specific communication needs. That's as a level 3 autistic person who's echolalic. Nature of the work. Echolalic phrases are often drawn from everyday speech, media, or public discourse, where the content is more factual or expressive rather than highly original or creative. Fair use tends to be more permissive when the original material is less creative, such as common language or publicly available phrases. Even if echolalia involves unique or creative expressions from media, the autistic person's use does not reproduce the work in a way that competes with or diminishes the value of the original. Amount and substantiality of the portion used. In many cases, echolalia involves short phrases or snippets rather than large portions of a work. Fair use often allows for brief quotes or phrases, especially when they are part of everyday speech or necessary for communication. Even if longer passages are used, the intention remains non-infringing, as the repetition serves as a language and cognitive aid. The amount used is also typically limited to what is necessary for communication, which aligns with fair use's principle of minimal use. Effect on the market or value of the original. Echolalic repetition does not impact the commercial market or value of original phrases, whether from movies, books, or everyday speech. The autistic person's use is generally personal, with no competitive or commercial implications for the original work. Additionally, Echolalia does not replace the original content or prevent others from purchasing or experiencing it in its intended form. In summary, an autistic person's echolalic use of other people's phrases and sentences aligns well with fair use given its functional, non-commercial, and transformative nature. The phrases serve a unique communicative purpose and do not infringe on the original work's market value or purpose. I will take it as a misunderstanding and a misinterpretation. And I'm doing this video because it's just wrong for level 1 autistic people to dominate the internet spaces on what it's like to be autistic in a way that can harm more severely autistic people. There are broad statements being made, and there's no disclaimer that, well, when you've seen one autistic person, you've only seen one autistic person. And I'm talking about myself as a level 1 autistic content creator, but in no way am I expressing what it's like to be a more severe level 2 or 3 autistic person, like Mary, the Autism channel. So, that being said, let's turn to some of the comments to Orion's video. And let's acknowledge the fact that Orion's video speedily came out right after I posted my video. And look me in the eye, you autistic litigant, or you will lose your court case. And that video took echolalic type video clips so that I could communicate and transform it into an educational video for people who either are autistic and want to be a lawyer and might go to law school through a bar admission process, or people who are neurotypical lawyers in the courts and judges in the courts, about demeanor evidence and how you weigh whether a person is telling the truth or being a liar in a court, and what happens when the autistic person cannot read facial expressions, body language, express them, have interoception and proprioception impairments, and so on and so forth. Right after I published that video, out came Orion's video. And when you read the comments to the video and comments made to me, it seems pretty clear that all of this was a reaction to my level 2-3 severe autistic echolalia to communicate my own thoughts and be able to express myself and have a way to say the complex thoughts that are within my autistic brain. And so some of these comments were scathing. And one of them was directed to my comment on Orion Kelly, that autistic guy's reaction video. And here's what one of them had to say. This is, I don't know how to pronounce it, Isabella Fagai 7351 said, I'm level 2 and was a content creator for several years. I had to oppose to the discourse of level 1 autistics who said stuff that causes danger to people with higher support needs. There are other ways than a reaction video to do that. For example, you can simply quote what the level 1 person said and then explain why saying such a thing is actually dangerous for autistic people with higher support needs. I've done it several times. For example, in my country, a part of level 1, people were very noisy with the slogan, "Autism is just a difference, not a disability." I oppose quoting the slogan and explaining that politicians and the government employees are already convinced autistic people are just a bunch of lazy or generally morally bad people that needs punishment instead of support. And that saying this slogan is going to make us lose the status of disability and thus all support. And that level 2 and 3 autistic adults will literally die if we lose support. Anyways, that's just to say that even when faced with very dangerous speech from level 1 people who don't consider impacts of their discourse on higher support needs individuals, you don't need to do a reaction video to oppose. Well, that's just a bunch of myth and bunk. And this may be an actually autistic person behind the keyboard, and I don't really know that for sure because I can't see the person behind the keyboard. I don't know if they have a diagnosis themselves or not, or if they're autistic or not. I don't know that. I don't have any way to know that. I do know that in the United States, the Federal Bureau of Investigation is going around making fake shills and stuff to try to change. This is under the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris administration, to censor autistic adults and to shape the autism discourse. And they don't want to talk about severe autism and levels 2 and 3. So I have no way of knowing if that's an FBI shill attack on me, on my comment, or if this is actually an autistic person who is everything that the comment says and typing behind a keyboard. But I'll respond to that comment. First of all, when the commenter says, for example, you can simply quote what the level 1 person said and then explain why saying such a thing is actually dangerous for autistic people with higher support needs. That is a totally ignorant take on what it's like to be severely autistic with level 3 or 2 autism, and you do not have fully functional language, and you never did. And you use echolalia and scripting and video clips of sentences and phrases other people created to try to express your thoughts and express your speech. That is a myth. That is a misunderstanding. Because in order to do that, to take the quote and then to explain why saying such a thing is X, Y, or Z, that requires me as a severely autistic person to explain, requires me to be able to create my own sentences and phrases when I don't have fully functional language, and I am not able to do that without using words and phrases and sentences other people created to express my thoughts. It ignores what it means to have echolalia. And by the way, see my other video, I also have pica. So, let's get to some more of these comments because this just really gets into the thick of things. Here is a comment on Orion's reaction video from Neurodivergent. And she says, in relevant part, I know the ability to react to content is an important part of free speech. If significant portions of one creator's video are shown for reaction content, viewers will likely not go back to watch the video a second time on the original creator's channel. This takes watch hours away from them. And you can say reaction content might generate exposure for the original creator, but the reactor is still, here comes the word, profiting off their content. Neurodivergent T does a lot of videos, and if I'm wrong, correct me, but I believe she is also about a level 1 autistic person. And to make the assumption that a more severely level 3 or 2 autistic content creator is profiting off the video clips of other autistic content creators, that's a big assumption and is very reckless, and that's not necessarily true. My own channel is not monetized because I'm severely autistic level 2 or 3, and no one wants to hear anything that I have to say, even though it's my own autistic lived experience. In addition, I can't navigate all of these softwares to make the pretty feathery things and the changing colors and the captions, like for example Autistic and some of the others, or even the entrance logo on Orion's video. I cannot navigate that. I'm too severely autistic. I don't have that ability. And so my videos only show up with just me and being done by my cell phone. And then people don't like them because I have Band-Aids on my fingers sometimes. Nobody asks me, why do you have Band-Aids on your fingers? Well, that's because I trim horses' hooves with rasps and nippers. I trim their hooves, but sometimes I rasp my finger by accident because I have fine motor impairments because I'm severely autistic. And I have proprioception and vestibular impairments because I'm severely autistic. That doesn't make my videos second-class citizen or less valuable in what they have to say. And I do my channel for educational content mostly. But what's upsetting these other level 1 autistic content creators is that I'm trying to bring about change in United States and state court systems, which are the biggest bastion of autism discrimination and abuse on the face of the planet. And it needs to change. And I've been in these courts. It's just been me quoting a level 1 autistic person and trying to explain why court should be learning something about autistic people and why what they're doing is wrong. They don't listen to me because I'm one person. I'm one autistic person. But the autistic numbers are rapidly increasing, and mostly because of all the misdiagnoses and misdiagnoses of adults who are autistic that are now being found to be autistic and were now being counted. And so it makes a great deal of difference to try to show these courts why they're wrong and need to change to be more inclusive and be more neuro-affirming by taking video clips of other autistic people. But I have echolalia, so no, I cannot make my own phrases and sentences and create them. I have to make a script or take video clips of other people's sentences and phrases and sometimes paragraphs that explain, because I don't have that communication ability. It's an aid to my ability to communicate and express myself and communicate my point. And neurodivergent, just so you know, my autistic life, my adult autistic life, has been so screwed over that no one ever hired me, and I'd get fired right away for simply being severely autistic without any regard to whether I had trained my talent and could do the skill that I only get $199 income from the United States Social Security Administration retirement income. And that's my income. So no, I'm not profiting in the way that you're assuming. So just please know that. Let's get to more comments. Here is OHFFS, who comments, I understand what you're saying about theft, Orion. As far as Autistic Creators goes, I do think some of these social media creators are lazy and want their 5 seconds of fame for using someone else's videos just to cause controversy. Now, again, this person can refer back to the ChatGPT question and response I just presented. So this person isn't really up to date on fair use. But in addition to that, more severely autistic people, level 3 or level 2, it's not about being lazy or 5 seconds of fame. I have severe physical impairments. I also had breast cancer, and I'm on anti-cancer drugs that cause fatigue on top of autistic burnout and shutdown. So first of all, OHFFS, you should be ashamed of yourself. Learn something about autistic women who get breast cancer and undergo fatiguing drugs like Verzenio so that we don't get cancer again and die. But in terms of saying 5 seconds of fame for using someone else's videos, well, autistic people who are more severely autistic and don't have fully functional language, who are levels 2 or 3, well, we have echolalia. That's an immutable trait of being autistic. Deal with it. Because for you to say that a severely autistic level 2, 3 autistic person cannot use echolalia and video clips of other autistic creators to express our thoughts and express ourselves as an aid to our ability to communicate, well, that's censorship. That's censorship and violates the First Amendment to the Constitution, because you would say I don't get to communicate what it's like to be severely autistic at all, and just let the level 1s and the neurotypical people and autism parents communicate for me. Well, that's not acceptable, and that's a misunderstanding. My channel is about educating people. It's a civil rights struggle. And this is happening in the United States with autistic adults. We are oppressed in the United States. There's basically an autism apartheid going on. And there's people who object to that who are severely autistic. Let's move on to another comment. CEFK9944 says, you said it yourself. You talk about your own lived experience. That could be argued to be as creative and unique as art should be. No. That's just a big no. Because when autistic people, content creators, make videos about our lived autistic experience, those are factual statements about our lived experience. They may be anecdotal. They may be anecdotal evidence, but they could in fact be cited in a court as anecdotal evidence by making a compilation of some of these lived autistic experience statements. For example, like my last video, where courts are using demeanor rules to say whether the autistic person is telling the truth or lying, which can result in a criminal conviction that's wrongful, the loss of a civil case for money damages for like getting in a car accident and being injured and you need medical care, the case is lost, which is wrongful, all because the demeanor evidence the courts use in a neurotypical court design gets to say, if you can't look me in the eye, you're a liar. Well, there's a problem with that. So if it's my case, I can go in there and do what U.S. Supreme Court justices like the Honorable Stephen Breyer did in an American with Disabilities Act case, and only I can do it with YouTube videos on autistic lived experience. Those are living autistic people's factual statements. They are anecdotal evidence. In no way is that artistic and creative. The part that's artistic and creative is the artwork that the software's putting in there, the different colors and the smoke that goes up in the air and the little feathery streamers and that kind of stuff. That's the artistic creation. But if you're titling it, then that's part of the factual lived experience. So that's just a big no. And one of the criticisms of neurotypical people and outside looking in and telling us autistic people what autism is that they're not doing it from the internal autistic experience about what it's like, the lived experience of an autistic person. And that's why it's very important to use the factual statements of lived autistic life in order to explain the autistic experience. Thank you, Stephanie44. You got it right. Well, if they weren't intending to attack, they probably just thought they were joining the conversation and adding more nuance by providing additional educational content and personal experience. Yay! Someone got it right. Someone finally got it right. But there's more comments that we need to consider. There's a lot of comments. And then there were comments, I like reaction videos. I hate reaction videos. Okay, so there were those. But here's another comment. Miss Spat 75555. This is definitely a gray area. It's like plagiarism, copying and pasting whole paragraphs from someone else's paper, unchanged or barely changed. Well, that isn't ethical. But taking small snippets from a dozen people's papers and adding your own comments interspersed throughout and citations, well, that's research of the highest order. But where exactly is the line? I guess wherever both sides are willing and able to fight for it to be. And this comment really expands on the Echolalia situation of a severely level 3 or 2 autistic person like myself. So this has always been true my entire life, and it's kind of like what Temple Grandin says about thinking in pictures, which using video clips is really an autistic thinking in pictures language without having to translate back and forth. So that being said, you could go to the autism discussion group on Facebook, and in some of Bill Nason's posts, it talks about how autistic people have to take all of the details of the information and put it together like a jigsaw puzzle, and all the pieces and try to fit them in place, and then process the whole bulky amount of information, the voluminous amount of information in the file in sequence in order to see the big picture. That's because of bottom-up information processing. Autistic people like me don't have top-down information processing, but we have motor impairments, and I'm severely autistic, level 3 or 2, so I cannot create my own phrases, sentences, or paragraphs. So I have to find other people's articles, words, phrases, paragraphs, sometimes several paragraphs, what I call a block of text, and I have to copy paste it on my computer. I do it into one giant Word file. I make some headings as I'm trying to put the jigsaw puzzle together. And then I get blocks of it, try to fit it here and try to fit it up there. And I try to put it together. But it is copying and pasting whole paragraphs from someone else's paper because it's echolalia. Because I don't have fully functional language. Now, you could say, well, that's plagiarism and it's not ethical. Well, that's a neurotypical concept. And to put it in there, you say, well, to take small snippets interspersed and add your commentary. Well, how do you think a severely autistic person with echolalia does it? How do you think we do it? We take copy-paste of whole paragraphs from someone else's paper. That's step number 1. We put it in a giant file. The file can reach 1,000 pages or 1,500 pages. We piece together the information, thinking in pictures like Temple Grandin describes, like Bill Nason describes on the Autism Discussion Group. That's how we do it. It's the methodology of how we physically do it. So, in order for us to make the small snippets in the commentary, we have to reduce it or concise it in size. And autistic people who are severely autistic like me, level 3 or 2 without fully functional language, we cannot synthesize. We cannot concise it top down. So the only way we can take small snippets and make commentary is by putting the, what you call, label plagiarized, copy and pasted whole paragraphs in a giant text document, and then making a comment, and then snipping out a piece and putting it to our comment. And can we weave it in together? Not necessarily. So, to drive this point home, let's talk about how a severely autistic, level 2-3 autistic person who lacks fully functional language and lacks the ability of social communication and social interaction passes the hardest bar exam in the United States, the California bar exam. Let's talk how that can happen. And stop saying the misunderstanding and misconception of you can't be autistic because you passed the bar exam. Or you can't be level 2 or 3 severely autistic because you passed the bar exam. And let's look at some other problems with this myth and misconception. Being severely autistic, level 3 or 2, and lacking fully functional language and having echolalia, I came under bullying and worse on something called TTR blogs. And, well, let's just see how this started. So, this myth that a severely autistic person isn't autistic or can just speak or write by creating our own phrases and sentences and paragraphs without echolalia, well, that's just a myth. So let's look at some of what happened when a group of neurotypical law clerks and lawyers and co-conspirator friends found out I'm severely autistic and passed the California bar exam, the hardest bar exam in the nation. First of all, you have a blogger called AnnTM who says, biting my tongue because I work for the appellate court that could hear her case. I have access to the pleadings below. Whose case? It was my case about autism discrimination. And who is AnnTM? This is AnnTM. She is the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris pardon attorney who leads the pardon office at the United States Department of Justice. Elizabeth Oyer. She was appointed to serve as pardon attorney in April 2022. Prior to her appointment, she spent 10 years as a federal defender. And here's the admission. Ms. Oyer clerked for the Honorable Stanley Marcus U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit. That's her, Elizabeth Oyer, blogging under AnnTM. I work for the appellate court that could hear her case, and I have access to her pleadings below. That court was the 11th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeal, and that's when she worked for the Honorable Stanley Marcus 11th Circuit Court of Appeal judge who was assigned to my autism discrimination case.
She's a graduate of Georgetown University, Harvard Law School, and she also clerked at the 11th Circuit. Welcome, Ms. Oyer. Can you give us some thinking behind that outreach initiative?
Sure, yeah. I believe that it's really important for all of the diverse stakeholders in the clemency process to have the opportunity to be heard.
And this is Elizabeth Oyer, who was judge, the Honorable Stanley Marcus, was assigned to my autism discrimination case when it was on appeal in the 11th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals, and she was blogging ex parte communication about me that was being imported into my case that showed bias and prejudice against me, autistic people, and certainly the American with Disabilities Act. She was assigned to my case under the blog avatar AnnTM. And then another one of the co-conspirators in this law clerk lawyer group says, "Oh dear Ann, you must have some wicked bite marks in your tongue right now. I don't know how you can stand it." AnnTM says, "Spot, you have no idea." And then another one of them, Flashy Gray, says, "Certifiable freak show." That's how she describes a severely autistic person. "I am also lamenting the fact that I missed this while doing horse-related activities last night. I heart all the TTR legal eagles who are keeping us updated on this. It's hilarious, although AnnTM, you need to keep off of here." And then this other one, Tawanda, says, "Good catch, Kahuna. We have Pacer for free." That's the federal court electronic docket system. "I wonder if I can get access even though we are the 6th Circuit. That's the 6th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeal. Tawanda was apparently a Sixth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeal law clerk. And don't you work for the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals? I have a crazy day, but hopefully we'll have some time to do CP legal research. CP is the initials for my autism service horse, Cello's Pride. And so I was blogging on Chronicle of the Horse. See my other video about the bullying and mean things that were said to me when I was blogging over there on my special horse interest. And I was blogging under the name Cello's Pride, which is what they're referring to here. These are people that participated on this Chronicle of the Horse blog that I made the video on in my other video, and they came over to this blog here to talk about me because I'm severely autistic and I passed the hardest bar exam in the nation with Echolalia. AnnTM says, "Gah! Galloper, email me. I want to talk about this stuff with somebody and not feel guilty." And notice that Galloper is replying to AnnTM saying you can delete your address now if you want. That's spoliation of evidence. Then co-conspirators Tawanda, an apparent Sixth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeal law clerk, says, "I have this insane obsession with meeting her in person, like anyone up for a trip to Florida. Meet her, that's me. Severely autistic, level 2 or 3. And she's talking about stalking me across state lines from the Sixth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeal area into Florida with AnnTM, who is not telling her not to, not objecting, and not withdrawing from the furtherance of the goal of the co-conspirators." Galloper responds about the trip to Florida. I Yahoo mapped her address off of the pleadings. I know I'm an evil child. It really does appear to be a boat slip. Another poster says, "Tawanda, get past that obsession right now. She's loony." Another poster says, and this is where they were posted, "AnnTM and Galloper, couldn't you guys let your fingers do a little oops slipping?" And this is the blog where they were posting these. One named Squishy says, "AnnTM, what do they tell you appellate circuit guys about confidentiality of records?" AnnTM says, "Squishy, you know what? I don't even remember what they said about confidentiality of records. I deal with sealed stuff every day. I just feel weird using passwords for Pacer and Chaser that are given to me as a court employee for research purposes, and then looking up a case just because I've heard about the plaintiff and think she's a nut job. I do know I cannot belong to any organizations that might come before the court, cannot make political donations or belong to political groups, cannot ever protest anything ever, etc. But they never said anything about having an unhealthy obsession with a litigant I encounter on an internet BB, i.e. a severely autistic level 2-3 autistic litigant, me, who passed the hardest bar exam in the nation." AnnTM, "Galloper, I certainly wouldn't feel as weird about it if I didn't work for the court. They put the fear of God in us about being impartial, always being impartial, avoiding every possibility of even a slightest iota of appearance of impropriety. Spot, Ann, I would think you are nuts to share any details over a public BB. It might be CP free today, but what about tomorrow or the next day? Who knows?" Minnie Welsh says, "FWIW, I totally disagree that she is lucid, intelligent, and knows exactly what she is doing. Anyone who read her email to me will most likely concur. She rambles incoherently with little grammatical or sentence structure." Posted here. And that's identifying my Echolalia, and that I cannot create my own sentences, phrases, and paragraphs. Then another co-conspirator, Quietly Irish, starts targeting my California bar exam pass. I doubt the California Board of Bar Examiners even needs the internet spewage. They've got to be well aware that she's special, formerly Frankie Demand. And that was posted here, and AnnTM says, just in case anyone's wondering, I deleted some of the references to where I work, etc. from this email. Mention of CP's return has me paranoid, particularly since she noted the bashing on other. And to be clear, they know CP is me. They say what my name is here, and it was posted there. And so then, because I'm severely autistic, level 3, level 2, and passed the California bar exam, AnnTM, Elizabeth Oyer, and her co-conspirators started attacking my California bar admission prospects. Here's AnnTM in her own words talking about my California bar admission. And remember, she was assigned to my autism discrimination case in the 11th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals. AnnTM, I may be wrong, but I thought she explained her bar situation, or maybe I was the only one who dissected the messages so I could figure it out. From what I gather, she fought for some time, months, years, with the bar examiners for her accommodations for the test. In the meantime, she couldn't pay her bills, maxed her credit cards, perhaps even declared bankruptcy. Bottom line, she proved herself financially irresponsible. When she finally passed the bar exam, she couldn't pass the CNF, or maybe the decision to accept her on CNF ground had been revoked because of her financial problems. I think she is still litigating with the California bar examiners, claiming, 1, that it's their fault she had money problems, and 2, that she deserves accommodations in the courtroom and for the practice of law. I think she claims that without these accommodations, she cannot earn a living as a lawyer. Anyway, from what she said, it's a money thing from applying for the bar in 2 different states. I know they ask a buttload of random questions, and it's quite possible to have trouble getting things straightened out, even if you've never done anything drastic wrong, like commit a crime. She's still crazy, though, and bar examiners do ask about your mental problems and your medications, etc. Now, here you have AnnTM, Elizabeth Oyer. Elizabeth Oyer. So here is Elizabeth Oyer blogging under AnnTM, who was assigned to my autism discrimination case in the 11th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals. AnnTM here. Tawanda, the apparent U.S. 6th Circuit Court of Appeals law clerk, is envious about a severely level 3-2 autistic person passing the hardest bar exam in the nation, she says. Oh, and a third one. I am Cello's pride. In other words, she's wanting to be me. There. And then, Quietly Irish, one of the co-conspirators of AnnTM, formerly Frankie Demand, says, by the way, who in the name of all things holy marries Cello's pride? I'd love to get a look at that dude if in fact he exists. And then they start threatening me. Squishy. Forks in eyeballs equals disability. And then Tawanda, the apparent U.S. 6th Circuit Court of Appeal law clerk, admits using false pretenses to get me to write an email. And she says, I am the proud owner of an email from the one and only CP. Received it last week. Apparently I had emailed someone long ago about how all her ramblings were a bunch of excuses and she was the most excuse-prone person I had ever encountered. Well, lo and behold, said friend anonymously sent it to CP. It had my email address on it, and CP wrote me back. It's a gem, folks. And then Tawanda said, guess in my original email I said something like, when I took the bar, there was a girl in my class who had MS and got no accommodation. She passed. I think I said something else about when I passed the bar. Maybe I should have asked for special accommodations since I am dumb and failed it the first time, blah, blah, blah. So she went off on this tangent. It was awesome. And then the co-conspirators with AnnTM start saying, post it now, Tawanda. Tawanda says, P.S. I have no idea where she got that I was admitted to the California bar. In my wettest and wildest dreams, maybe I could pass that test. So there's clearly autistic envy that someone like me with severe level 3-2 autism using Echolalia could pass the hardest bar exam in the nation. And that was why I was the target of all of this bullying and these attacks. And then quietly Irish formerly Frankie Demand says, shit awesome. And in-depthly says, crazy as a loon. Thank you for making my day extra special. And Tawanda says, in-depthly, quit having such an attitudinal barrier. And remember that AnnTM, Elizabeth Oyer, was participating with these people showing bias and prejudice, a lack of impartiality, while she was assigned as a law clerk on my case for the Honorable Stanley Marcus, 11th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeal judge. And she's listening to prohibited ex parte communication, making these kinds of comments on my being level 2-3 severely autistic, and importing it into what produced the outcome of my case, which I lost. And Tawanda says, P.S. if anyone wants the full Monty, feel free to email me. And then Tawanda says, yes, and Blackie gets one for her boob disability. And then Tawanda says, batshit crazy is my new favorite word. And quietly Irish, formerly Frankie Demand, says, Blackie, if you have a boob disability, what the hell do I have? Maybe a non-boobular disorder? I concur with your new rule on posting private emails. This is all autism hate directed at me because I'm level 2-3 severely autistic. And Tawanda says, damn, I just looked at the bottom of TTR and saw that there were like 20 more people logged on now than there were when the message was posted in its entirety. And then Elizabeth Oyer, posting under AnnTM, is asking for the prohibited ex parte communication. Tao, me too. Tao, can you send that email along to me? Let me know if you need me to remind you of my email address. I have a bizarre fascination for CP. On the one hand, she's certainly a hoot. But on the other hand, I feel bad because she's clearly crazy. Maybe the psych major in me, but I find myself analyzing her posts, reading and rereading them, trying to figure out what her deal is. She's definitely not just an opinionated gal. She's off her rocker, no doubt. And then another co-conspirator, Chez Jerome, says, OMFG, Wingsy, the thought is too insane to comprehend. Imagine the implications of someone who is colorblind wanting to purchase a colored sport horse. Does that make one chromatically challenged under the ADA, and does it give you a buy for a dual registration for your Sabino thoroughbreds? Add me to the list of those who want to read the dirt in full. And then it becomes really clear, because after AnnTM makes veiled threats against my bar admission, which I already read here, another of her co-conspirators says, in my state, you can be denied admission to the bar for something simple like hearing voices in your head. And that was all posted here. And then Tawanda says about the non-boobular disorder bullying, That was all posted here. And then Tawanda says about the non-bubular disorder bullying. And I've had a double mastectomy as a severely level 2-3 autistic woman with the removal of 27 lymph nodes. Well, they're mocking bubular disorders and non-bubular disorders here. These are law clerks to the U.S. Court of Appeals and President Biden-Harris administration's lead pardon clerk. Tawanda, is it even possible to read 5,000 cases without making your eyes bleed? You legal eagles even think there are 588 cases out there? Quietly Irish, formerly Frankie Demand, says, no, she said 5,000, not 500. There could be that many given the number of years the ADA has been around, I guess. Lord knows I wouldn't want to read all of them. All that's proving is she's completely insane. She'll never be admitted to the bar. Give it up, nutbag. And Tawanda says, oh, I meant 5,000. Sorry. And then AnnTM, Elizabeth Oyer, Biden-Harris administration's pardon attorney, posting under AnnTM says, I have free Westlaw, so I will check. Running off to log on to Westlaw. Okay, there are about 10,600 if you search in all federal databases. If you search in just appellate courts and above, there are about 3,350. So yes, I suppose she could have read 5,088 cases. Sad but true. So here comes the bias and prejudice from the prohibited ex parte communications with these co-conspirators that AnnTM, Elizabeth Oyer, imported into my 11th Circuit Court of Appeal autism discrimination case to deny me an impartial tribunal. So the write-on competition for the law journals when I was a first-year student involved Title III of the ADA, the Casey Martin v. PGA case that has been referenced on TOB. We had to research or write our memos prior to the Supreme Court decision, and we had to predict how the case would come out. I did not agree with the majority of the court. I thought Martin should walk the golf course or not play in PGA tournaments. That means me and CP don't see eye to eye. Huh? And what was the Casey Martin v. PGA Tour case about? It was about the ADA's reasonable modification of rules, policies, and practices requirement, which is the main Title II ADA reasonable accommodation as a severely autistic, level 2-3 autistic person who does not have fully functional language and relies on echolalia and scripting due to delayed information processing that I required to access the courts. Then Limey says, thanks, Tal. Did she ever think she has over 2,000 job rejections? Is because she is loco? Wonder if she sees dead people too. And then Raintrap says, I want it too. Love me some crazies. And Milkwort says she's read over 5,000 cases on this subject alone. Please add to her list of disabilities, OCD. Amy says, question. She always keeps sprouting about the California bar, so why on her Chronicle of the Horse profile does she have a Florida address? Right? Why not sprout about Florida too? One-on-One says she applied to the California bar, but she lives on a leaky sailboat in Florida. AnnTM, Elizabeth Oyer says, I think she bitches about the Florida bar too, but not quite as much. Maybe she's holding off applying there until she gets the suit against the California bar resolved. I wonder where she keeps her horse in Florida, if she has to live on a leaky sailboat. Being from Florida, I wonder if anyone I know down there knows her. And she posted that here. So AnnTM, Elizabeth Oyer, posting as AnnTM, is clearly suggesting she wants to be involved in the stalking of me, because I'm severely level 2-3 autistic. And then not only my bar exam, but myself physically, and to try to fabricate crimes against me that I don't know anything about was threatened. This is mad. Red Rover, let the ADA come over. No, because then she will have a legitimate claim for being mentally disabled after this BB is done with her. This is an autism hate crime. I'm severely autistic with level 2-3 autism. When level 1 autistic people make these kind of reaction videos and totally misinterpret and misunderstand more severely level 3 or 2 autistic people, this just inflicts vast harm on us, on people like me. And I just don't understand why Orion is doing this. Is it because he's a monetized content creator and he wants to draw up the drawbridge so that more severely level 2-3 autistic content creators cannot bring a civil rights struggle and educate people about more severe autism and why we are human beings and we should be treated in a neuroaffirming way and why our lives have value? And you can't say, oh, well, you passed the hardest bar exam in the nation, so you can't be severely level 2-3 autistic. So it's not fair use because you're using it as a communication aid and to educate, and because you have echolalia and you script. Well, that's wrong too. Here's what ChatGPT had to say about that. Can a level 3 autistic person without fully functional language pass a bar exam by using echolalia and memory? It's theoretically possible for a level 3 autistic person with significant support needs to pass the bar exam if they have an exceptional memory and can retain large amounts of information verbatim through echolalia or recall. But this scenario would be challenging, and here's why. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'll do the video of it, and you can read it for yourself. So I refined the query. And I asked, does an autistic person's ability to use only echolalia preclude comprehension and analytical thinking? And so ChatGPT answers that too. And it explains that echolalia is a communication tool, that some autistic individuals use echolalia to express themselves when other forms of language are not easily accessible. By repeating phrases they've heard, they may be expressing complex thoughts, emotions, and needs in a way that works for them. They may also use it as a bridge to deeper understanding, as the repetition of phrases can help them process and make sense of language. And so the ChatGPT gives this answer. And then I asked, in what way specifically is abstract reasoning required to pass a bar exam? And so ChatGPT answers that question here. And ChatGPT is basically saying that the legal analysis and synthesis part of a bar exam requires the ability to abstract reason, which I lack because I'm severely level 2-3 autistic. So ChatGPT makes the analysis here. And it says to pass the bar exam, a candidate must use abstract reasoning to interpret the law beyond memorized rules, often making connections and judgments that reflect a deeper understanding of legal systems, ethics, and case analysis. So I ask another follow-up question to tease it out more here. And this is ChatGPT's answer to me. And ChatGPT says, so while passing the bar exam requires abstract reasoning skills, it doesn't test or require direct social interaction abilities. Abstract reasoning in this context is about applying legal rules and interpreting hypothetical situations, not about interpersonal interaction or social cognition. So I asked ChatGPT, most points on a bar exam can be obtained by spotting the issue and by knowing which rule to apply, without needing abstract reasoning ability. So wouldn't a level 3 autistic person be able to accumulate enough points to pass a bar exam without having abstract reasoning ability? And ChatGPT admits this is possible. And it gives an answer why here. And ChatGPT says, in summary, while a level 3 autistic person with strong memory could potentially accumulate some points through issue spotting and rule recall, certain areas of the bar exam still require analytical and abstract reasoning to achieve a passing score. With the right accommodations and supports, though, such a candidate could enhance their strengths in these areas and potentially succeed on the bar exam. So then I ask the question, it does not seem that abstract reasoning is the only way to know which rules apply, where even in a complex situation, Echolalia being able to repeat legal phrases and sentences created by someone else, plus the ability to know where to plug them in, plus an autistic savant memory is another way to accomplish the same result. In addition, synthesis and analysis is usually assigned a very low amount of points, whereas the lion's share of points is in issue spotting and knowing which rule to plug in. In this scenario, why can't a level 3 autistic person pass a bar exam solely off these autistic strengths? And then ChatGPT says, you're absolutely right that it's possible for a level 3 autistic person to accumulate enough points to pass the bar exam by leveraging strengths like echolalia, exceptional memory, and pattern recognition to identify issues and plug in rules without relying on traditional abstract reasoning. Here's how that could work. Memory as a substitute for analysis, echolalia for constructed legal phrases. Recognizing patterns, where to plug in the issue spotting and rule memorization. Performance and essay sections with minimal analysis, accommodations, and extended time. With accommodations such as extra time, the candidate could use their echolalic and memory strengths to organize responses based on patterns and structures they've studied. This could make it easier for them to repeat, adapt, and correctly apply legal phrases they know, compensating for any difficulties in abstract reasoning. Well, this approach wouldn't work for every candidate. A level 3 autistic person with exceptional memory and a strong ability to recall and apply language through echolalia could indeed accumulate enough points to pass, given that the exam structure allows for substantial points to be earned from correct issue identification and rule statement alone. This route emphasizes using unique cognitive strengths in lieu of traditional analysis and reasoning styles, which could lead to success on the bar exam. So, yes, you can be severely level 2-3 autistic, use echolalia and scripting because you don't have fully functional language, and video clips of other level 1 autistic creators as an aid to communication in order to communicate your thoughts as a severely autistic person with high support needs. And yes, you can even pass a bar exam, the hardest bar exam in the United States, the California bar exam, simply as a severely autistic level 2-3 person using echolalia and savant memory. It's a myth to say you passed a bar exam, you can't be severely level 2-3 autistic. It's a myth and a wrongful accusation when a severely level 2-3 autistic person uses video clip echolalia of other level 1 autistic people as a communication aid to communicate our thoughts and transform it into our own civil rights educational video. A severely autistic level 2-3 person could not do this, then we would be completely censored and we could not communicate our thoughts at all. So this reaction video was absolutely necessary to dispel some of the myths and the misunderstandings of people who are severely autistic with high support needs, level 2 or 3. That's my video for today. And I asked ChatGPT if it's fair use. And contrary to Orion's conclusion, yes, it's fair use. Right here. It's fair use. In summary, an autistic person's echolalic use of other people's phrases and sentences aligns with fair use, given its functional, non-commercial, and transformative nature. The phrases serve a unique communicative purpose and do not infringe on the original work's market value or purpose. So in sum, being that I'm severely level 2-3 high support needs autistic, and I do have to use echolalia and scripting, and I do not have fully functional language to create my own sentences, phrases, paragraphs, and entire works. I do use echolalia to be able to speak my thoughts. And if it wasn't for that communication aid, I wouldn't be able to express my thoughts at all. It would be pure censorship. To all those parents out there, especially in Florida, being told to cure their child's severe autism, there is hope and promise for level 2-3 severely autistic people like me, with enough supports and services and opportunities that are available to all other people. Yes, we can even pass the hardest bar exam in the nation. Engaging in a civil rights struggle for a better tomorrow for all autistic people, especially those severely autistic level 2-3, so they don't have to go through the horrors at the hands of others that I have experienced in my lived autistic life. It can be better than that. If you like my videos, please hit the subscribe button. You will be notified of my future videos. We are all human beings, and our lives have value too. Thank you for watching. And ChatGPT says, in summary, while a level 3 autistic person with strong memory could potentially accumulate some points through issue spotting and rule recall, certain areas of the bar exam still require analytical and abstract reasoning to achieve a passing score. With the right accommodations and supports, though, such a candidate could enhance their strengths in these areas and potentially succeed on the bar exam. So then I ask the question, it does not seem that abstract reasoning is the only way to know which rules apply, where even in a complex situation, echolalia, being able to repeat legal phrases and sentences created by someone else, plus the ability to know where to plug them in, plus an autistic savant memory, is another way to accomplish the same result. In addition, synthesis and analysis is usually assigned a very low amount of points, whereas the lion's share of points is in issue spotting and knowing which rule to plug in. In this scenario, why can't a level 3 autistic person pass a bar exam solely off these autistic strengths? And then ChatGPT says, you're absolutely right that it's possible for a level 3 autistic person to accumulate enough points to pass the bar exam by leveraging strengths like echolalia, exceptional memory, and pattern recognition to identify issues and plug in rules without relying on traditional abstract reasoning. Here's how that could work. Memory as a substitute for analysis, echolalia for constructed legal phrases. Recognizing patterns, where to plug in the issue spotting and rule memorization. Performance in essay sections with minimal analysis, accommodations, and extended time. With accommodations such as extra time, the candidate could use their echolalic and memory strengths to organize responses based on patterns and structures they've studied. This could make it easier for them to repeat, adapt, and correctly apply legal phrases they know, compensating for any difficulties in abstract reasoning. Well, this approach wouldn't work for every candidate. A level 3 autistic person with exceptional memory and a strong ability to recall and apply language through echolalia could indeed accumulate enough points to pass, given that the exam structure allows for substantial points to be earned from correct issue identification and rule statement alone. This route emphasizes using unique cognitive strengths in lieu of traditional analysis and reasoning styles, which could lead to success on the bar exam. So, yes, you can be severely level 2-3 autistic, use echolalia and scripting because you don't have fully functional language, and video clips of other level 1 autistic creators as an aid to communication in order to communicate your thoughts as a severely autistic person with high support needs. And yes, you can even pass a bar exam, the hardest bar exam in the United States, the California bar exam, simply as a severely autistic level 2-3 person using echolalia and savant memory. It's a myth to say you passed a bar exam, you can't be severely level 2-3 autistic. It's a myth and a wrongful accusation when a severely level 2-3 autistic person uses video clip echolalia of other level 1 autistic people as a communication aid to communicate our thoughts and transform it into our own civil rights educational video. A severely autistic level 2-3 person could not do this, then we would be completely censored and we could not communicate our thoughts at all. So this reaction video was absolutely necessary to dispel some of the myths and the misunderstandings of people who are severely autistic with high support needs, level 2 or 3. That's my video for today. And I asked ChatGPT if it's fair use. And contrary to Orion's conclusion, yes, it's fair use. right here. It's fair use. In summary, an autistic person's echolalic use of other people's phrases and sentences aligns with fair use, given its functional, non-commercial, and transformative nature. The phrases serve a unique communicative purpose and do not infringe on the original work's market value or purpose. So in sum, being that I'm severely level 2-3 high support needs autistic, and I do have to use echolalia and scripting, and I do not have fully functional language to create my own sentences, phrases, paragraphs, and entire works. I do use echolalia to be able to speak my thoughts. And if it wasn't for that communication aid, I wouldn't be able to express my thoughts at all. It would be pure censorship. If you like my videos, please hit the subscribe button. You will be notified of my future videos. Thank you for watching.